Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread. My name is Toyin Taiwo. Today I'm going to continue in our studies in 1 Timothy and we're looking at chapter 5. I'd like to read the first few verses before I begin to make any of my points. Verse 1 says, "Do not rebuke an older man harshly, but exhort him as if he were your father. Treat younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters with absolute purity." By beginning this section of First Timothy in this manner, Paul points to a very clear message that there are different kind of relationships that exist within the church, and each person should be treated uniquely. Some people have earned certain level of respect and should not be spoken to just in any manner. Other people are younger and should be treated more delicately or more carefully. Paul talks about Timothy, and this is important because Timothy is a young man, so it's more important how he relates to those who are older than him, how he relates to those who are his age mate, how he relates to male and female. Each one is different, and we cannot apply the same yardstick to everyone. With younger women, he specifically mentions purity. Why? Because Paul understands the dangers of relationships and how, if we are unguarded, things can actually go out of hand. In the verses that follow, Paul lays down certain rules and principles, which I would like to summarize in a couple of principles. Principle number 1 is that of taking care of the vulnerable amongst us. Paul asks Timothy that they should ensure that the widows are being cared for. He also goes on to talk about how, such widows should be selected. They should be indeed people who are in need, who have shown devotion and dedication to the work of the church and who can be vouched for within the local assembly. And this leads me to the second principle that Paul espouses here. That is the principle of responsibility, both by those who take care of and those who are being taken care of. What do I mean? Paul says that if people have family members who are vulnerable, their family should cater for them and not put the church under the burden of caring for those people. In addition, such people who are being catered for should also make sure that they are contributing in whatever community they are being catered for. We see this when he gives the qualifications for widows who should be on the role, of those that the church cares for. He says there should be women who, have demonstrated commitment, to the church. They've washed others' feet, they've taken care of children, they've done this, they've done that, but for some reason they just happen to be on their own. Then the church should, take responsibility for those people and cater for them. Another principle we see as we go further down the book of 1 Timothy chapter 5 is the principle of honor. And this applies specifically to elders in the church. Paul teaches that elders, especially those who preach and teach in a local church, they are worthy of double honor, which means that these people have demonstrated some form of character and have labored, to bring the word of God to the local assembly. So even if someone brings an accusation against them, except it is proven or confirmed by a second party, we should not be quick to receive, an accusation against such people. As we go further down, we see Paul giving specific personal instructions to Timothy, some about his spiritual life, some about physical life. Talk about, taking some wine and not only water. Talk about not being quick to lay hands upon people. Just general guidance for a young minister who is leading a local assembly. Again, I re-emphasize that every young minister will benefit greatly for spending considerable time studying the books, both of 1st and 2nd Timothy. In the early part of chapter 6, which we will look at next week, Paul also hints on relationship between slaves and masters and talks about how slaves should continue to be submissive to their masters, especially if they are believers. They should not take advantage of the fact that they are fellow brethren to, try and overthrow their order in the society. Serve them more faithfully as being close or beloved by you. The summary of this chapter and those first few chapters in verse 6 is that relationships are critical, and how we treat the people in the local church is reflective of the life of Christ in us and is a proof to the society around us that we have really been transformed. Thank you very much for taking time to watch this video. I hope you've been blessed. Next week, we'll look at the final chapter of 1 Timothy and pull a few insights before we wrap up our study in the book of 1 Timothy. And until then, stay blessed.